Hi, everybody. Today's Saturday, March 28th, 2026, and our dear friend or brother, Professor Marandi, is here with us. Welcome back, Professor.
Thank you, Nima. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Many people want to know what is happening right now in Iran. Yesterday, we had a huge escalation on the part of the United States. They attacked many energy facilities in Iran together with nuclear power plants and the water, the heavy water in the city of Arak. What is happening, Professor Man? What has happened yesterday?
Well, you're right. They struck key infrastructure, and the Iranians have already warned beforehand that if they carry out such strikes, the retaliation will be very severe. And they have stated that they will now strike key infrastructure in occupied Palestine, as well as the key infrastructure in the five regimes in the Persian Gulf, simply because these five regimes are part of the war. They, without them, the United States cannot wage this war. Without their airspace, without their land, without the bases, without access to their ports, this war is impossible. And they're even funding this war. These three countries are the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. They are providing funding. So, because of this situation, the Iranians feel that when they speak about their neutrality, they're insulting the intelligence of the Iranian people. So the destruction of key infrastructure and key industrial assets in these countries have begun, and it will continue until what the Iranians have declared beforehand that will be carried out is carried out. And we have to remember this has already happened before, as you know. The Iranians warned the American regime that if they strike our key infrastructure, there will be heavy retaliation. And the Israeli regime did that. They struck the South Pars gas field, and then Iran destroyed big parts of Qatar's gas installations, its gas installation, the LNG production, as well as key assets in the Emirates and in Saudi Arabia. So Iran, when it makes these threats, it's very serious. If this continues, Iran will continue. And ultimately, if we go down this road, if the Israelis push, that will lead to the complete destruction of oil and gas assets across the Persian Gulf. And then even if there is some sort of agreement down the road, there will be no gas and no oil and no tankers. So basically what the Israeli regime is doing is that it is sacrificing the entire world, the entire global economy, and Trump, being the obedient person that he is, even though we are told that he's seeking an off-ramp, it seems that he simply does not have the authority. He does not have the clout to end this. He is obedient to the Zionists and to the regime in Tel Aviv.
He said 48 hours ultimatum, then 5 days, then 10 days, and 10 days would be the April 6th, but they attack Iranian, infrastructure, energy, facilities in Iran. While Donald Trump said we're not going to attack these sort of facilities because he considered them as important. But right now they're doing this. They're doing what they said that they're not going to do. What is your understanding? Because it's so much important what is the strategy on the part of Iranians right now and how Iran would respond to the escalation that the United States is making right now.
Well, Iran has already said, and as I pointed out, it is going to respond, and severely. It's going to hit harder. Whatever they hit in Iran, Iran is going to hit twofold, threefold, fourfold. Probably not twofold, but more. So that aside, this just shows, Nima, that Iran cannot have a ceasefire with the United States. This is just another indication of that. We had an agreement with the United States, the nuclear deal in 2015, with a P5+1. The US was a part of it. It wasn't a great deal for Iran. It was a great deal for the US. Trump tore up the deal. And then even after that, and during his second presidency, we were negotiating with Trump, and it became clear 9 months ago that he was conspiring against us during those negotiations. And again, before this war, it was the same. Right now, he's saying that he's not going to attack key infrastructure, but they are. So that shows that Trump's signature, his promises, mean absolutely nothing. They're worthless. His words are worth nothing. And therefore, in order for this war to end, Iran is saying that the conditions on the ground must change. The conditions must be changed in a way in which in future Iran is not attacked again. We can't have a ceasefire where the American regime and the Israeli regime go back to the drawing board, regroup, rearm, and strike again 6 months from now, or a year from now, or in a year and a half from now, or 2 years from now. That's not acceptable. So the 5 Iranian demands are very reasonable, and Iran is not going to let go of any of them. We will demand reparations, and we will get those reparations. These Arab family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf, they are utterly complicit. They have murdered many Iranians, and they will have to pay for it. Every single bit of money that they owe to Iran, Iran will take from them. No doubt about that. And in addition to that, Iran's sovereignty has to be respected, and Iran's rights as a sovereign country have to be respected, and Iran's allies across the region, their security has to be respected as well. So a ceasefire is just out of the question. No one in Iran will accept a ceasefire because we know that if we accept a ceasefire, they will wage war again.
How do you see, Professor Marandi, the way that Saudi Arabia, because Fox News just announced that Saudi Arabia will join the fight. They're trying to make something up in the United States, but after all, I'm talking about the Arab states in the Persian Gulf, were they part of the war so far, and how deep they were?
Well, if they join the war, they will be immediately destroyed. Remember, none of these countries have anything but energy supplies. The foundation of the existence of these countries is based upon oil and natural gas. And almost all of their key assets are alongside the Persian Gulf. They can all be easily destroyed. If they enter the war directly, then everything is, as they say, fair game. Everything will be destroyed. And those regimes will collapse. I don't think they have any real question about that. If the Saudi regime, and I'm sure you saw how Trump humiliated Mohammed bin Salman just hours ago, saying that he has to kiss him, in the backside. If they have any dignity and honor, they would distance themselves from the United States. If they had any dignity and honor, they would distance themselves from the Greater Israel Project, because after all, Saudi territory is something that the Israeli regime wants, and the U.S. ambassador to occupied Palestine has admitted that and said that the United States would support it. They would have no problem with it. So instead of moving closer to Trump, who speaks about their leader in such a humiliating way, all they have to do is say the Americans must leave our territory. They cannot use our airspace, and they cannot use our bases, and we can only have an ordinary relationship like other countries. If that happens, then much of the problem will have been solved immediately. But they don't have that capability. These are proxy regimes of the United States. That's how they stay in power, through obedience to the United States.
Finally, we've seen Yemen joining the fight. And what is, in your opinion, important about Yemen joining the fight? And are we going to see the Bab al-Mandab, the Red Sea, being somehow managed as Iran is managing the Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, I think ultimately that's the direction we're moving in. Remember, the axis of resistance has not escalated. We did not start this war. Iran did not start this war. And we are only escalating in response to escalation. But when they escalate, Iran hits much harder, as we saw on the strike of Qatar's gas installations and Saudi and Emirati oil and gas installations. But Yemen is in and now entering, but even their entrance has stages. It could get very bad. The ground forces of Yemen are enormous. They can easily overrun significant parts of Saudi Arabia, just like the Iraqi resistance can easily take Kuwait and liberate northern Iraq. So, and they can go further than Kuwait. They can go beyond Kuwait into Saudi Arabia to the south. The United States is pushing for an escalation which is only going to end very badly for the United States and which is going to end badly for the world. What we're seeing now is bad enough. And Israel doesn't care about the world. The Israeli regime does not care about India's economy or Germany's economy or Argentina's economy or the Nigerian economy. They don't care about anyone. So they're more than willing to sacrifice the interests of the United States and the rest of the world for their own sake. And that is exactly why Trump is working against the interests of his own people and against the interests of the international community, because he is obedient to Israel. Now, why is that the case? Is it because they have footage of him with little girls? Is it because of the people who've surrounded him? Is it because of the lobby and how much money they've given to him and how much, or is it a combination of different things? Who knows? But at the end of the day, it is clear that the United States is stuck. It is only going to get worse. If they launch an attack tonight on Iran, a land attack, which is quite possible, the Iranian response will be massive. It will fail ultimately. They will have to leave ultimately. They will be stuck in a quagmire. But if they do attack, it's only going to make it worse. It's going to get worse and worse and worse and faster than what we have now. Iran has no option but to pursue the course that it is pursuing, because Iran is the victim. Iran is defending itself. And the countries in the Persian Gulf that export oil and gas, they're all complicit. The Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, they're all a part of this war. So Iran has no option but to treat them, the regime in Washington and the regime in Tel Aviv, in the way in which it is. Otherwise, they will try to undermine Iran's sovereignty, and the very existence of Iran is being targeted by the Zionists.
I think one of the main messages, key points, was mentioned by the head of the Iranian parliament, Mohammad Baqir Ghalibaf. He said that we have to put an end to this cycle of war, ceasefire, war. How is that going to be achievable? Is that going to, because 2 points in those 15 points on the part of the United States, which were presented to the Iranian side, were one of them is to limit Iranian ballistic missile program. The other one is, talking about the Iranian nuclear program. Is there anything in those points that could be achievable in this, considering these 2 points?
No, not at all. Nothing. Nima, there are 2 things that the Americans simply cannot comprehend. It's beyond their mental capabilities. One is that the Islamic Republic of Iran is fiercely independent, based on the values of the revolution, based on its civilizational heritage, based upon its religious ideology, and in particular, the Shia notion of resistance and resilience and struggle against the oppressor and support of the oppressed. This is something that makes Iran very strong and very capable of protecting itself and standing up to a power much greater, meaning the United States and the collective West and its regional proxies. The second is that because of that, independence. Iran has made decisions in Tehran. It does not buy F-35s and other weapons of the United States because the United States demands them to do so. It went and developed its own indigenous capabilities. It went and built missile cities and drone cities and the factories to develop them and enhance Iranian technological abilities. It enhanced Iran's universities. That's why for the last couple of days, the United States and the Israeli regime have begun bombing Iranian university campuses in Tehran, in Esfahan, and will probably continue. But they cannot take away knowledge. Iranians are educated, they're smart, they will rebuild better than before. But Iran is independent. No other country in this region is anything like Iran. So you have that resilience and you have that sense of independence. And Iran has developed those capabilities. We have those. They said that this war will end in 2 days. Why? Because they underestimated Iran's resilience. Then after 3 or 4 days, they said Iran is beginning to run out of missiles and drones because they underestimated Iran's capabilities. And that is going to lead to their ultimate defeat in this war. If Trump is smart enough to find an off-ramp and overcome Zionist obstacles, the damage will be less. The more he doubles down, the damage will be more and it will happen much more quickly. So the choice lies in Washington. But Washington does not care about the interests of the United States. It cares about the interests of the Israeli regime. But we'll have to see as the pressure builds up across the world, because everyone is blaming the Israeli regime. Everyone knows that they're behind it. They're blaming Washington because everyone knows they're behind it. So both in the United States and across the world, as the pressure builds, as the global economy suffers, we'll have to see if the arrogance of Zionism will be forced to bring an end to this aggression, or whether it will double down and make the catastrophe much worse than what it already is.
I think part of the equation is what is happening in Israel, and it seems that in Israel, the head of IDF said the army is collapsing from within. They have a lot of problems in that front with Lebanon, and we know that Hezbollah has shown a big, sort of comeback when you look at what Hezbollah is doing right now. They're hitting the central part of Israel, the southern part of Israel. They're fighting on the battleground, destroying Israeli, tanks. And how do you see the combination of what Hezbollah is doing? And right now we have Hezbollah in Iraq and Houthis, Yemenis joining the fight.
Nima, in the West, they always, whenever these journalists speak with me, I know that like these mainstream journalists or these think tankers, they contact me and ask me questions and I explain to them, sometimes on their television programs or radio programs. And they always want to think that like this is propaganda. For years, we've been saying, and the evidence is there on your show elsewhere, that if they attack Iran, they will fail and they will cause a global energy crisis, exactly as I've been saying for years, and exactly as other people on your show have been saying. Every time they would say to me that Hezbollah has been diminished, I would always tell them Hezbollah is not diminished. It is a very powerful force and it is rearming and preparing itself for the future. It has learned a lot about Israeli technology. The Israelis were preparing for 18 years for this war, and Hezbollah does not control Lebanon. Lebanon is full of enemies of Hezbollah. And of course, Al-Qaeda, US tool, is now in Syria. Despite that, they prepared themselves and exactly what we knew would happen happened. They are performing extraordinarily well. Yemen, which defeated the United States in another war a year ago, they are much more prepared today for war than even back then. And the resistance in Iraq is just beginning. It's just beginning. The escalation has not gone up the escalation, very much up the escalation ladder yet. So the West always underestimates. They always believe their propaganda, just like their propaganda about Iran. They always say Iran is weak, Iran is unpopular. The regime, when you always hear the regime, they love calling Iran a regime. They can keep doing that. We're fine with it. They keep saying it's unpopular. They believe their own propaganda, that the regime kills tens of thousands of its people on the streets and that sort of nonsense. They're the ones to blame because they're the ones who created these terrorist groups and these armed rebellions leading to the murder of innocent people. But they try to blame the Iran. Their media repeats what they say because the media is not open, it's not free. They belong to the Epstein class, just like the regimes belong to them. But the problem is that they believe their own propaganda. And so they underestimate. They believe their propaganda that Hezbollah is finished. They believe their propaganda that Iraq, we're in control. The Iraqis hate Iran. And they believe their propaganda about Yemen. And as a result, they only make things worse for themselves because they develop policies based upon their own propaganda, and then they hit a brick wall. And then they wonder why it didn't work. They don't think that their own estimations, their own analyses was deeply flawed. That's why when they develop new policies, it's still based upon the propaganda model, the propaganda that they've been producing through their propaganda models. So this is where we are. Hezbollah has been pounding the Israeli regime. And remember, Hezbollah is the big hero of the last 2.5 years. They and they continue to make sacrifices. Just today, the Israeli regime has been murdering journalists, targeting journalists. They've been murdering medics, and of course, the West doesn't care because they're controlled by the Epstein class, Western media. They murder women and children. They bomb houses, and Western media calls these Hezbollah strongholds, so that people wouldn't recognize that these are just apartment blocks that they're bombing and destroying. Hezbollah has made all these sacrifices because it wanted to stop the Israeli regime from slaughtering the kids in Gaza. The sacrifices of Hezbollah and the resistance were for the children of Gaza. History will remember Hezbollah as the most humane and ready to sacrifice force on this planet. And of course, the same is true with Ansar Allah in Yemen. The same is true with the resistance in Iraq, and the same is true with the Iranian people. The resilience of the Iranian people is extraordinary. Young teenagers, girls, boys, standing and on the streets as missiles are fired at them, at their demonstrations by this Epstein coalition, but they don't run away. They don't stampede. They stand their ground. They're extraordinary. But Hezbollah, because of its the fact that it has a border with occupied Palestine, has come under the most vicious of all attacks. And they will emerge victorious. And the region and the world will have to learn about what Hezbollah is. Why are they so resilient? Why are they so effective in standing up against Western domination, Western imperialism, and the brutality of Zionism?
Yesterday, we learned from the head of the IAEA, Grossi. He said that the only way that you can destroy Iranian nuclear program is to hit them by nukes, by nuclear weapons, by nuclear bombs, which was responded by the Iranian foreign minister. He reacted to what Grossi said, Professor Marandi. I think many people inside Iran and outside Iran are concerned about these sort of talks. It's not Benjamin Netanyahu and Ben Gvir talking about it. It's about the head of IAEA, to put it this way. this is hugely dangerous the way that they're talking about this. What do you make of it?
He's a shameless proxy. He's a shameless agent of the United States. He's a nobody. The only reason why he's in charge of the organization is because they want him there, and he wants to be uh, supported by the United States and the others, and it's the powers affiliated to the United States in the future. Such statements are disgraceful. But we're talking about the Epstein class. We're talking about a genocidal force that does things to babies and little girls. And of course, they bomb children. And the first thing that the United States did in the war against Iran was to bomb a school, an elementary school of girls. Anyone who says it's an accident does not know what he or she's talking about. This was the first attack on the first day. All the initial targets, the first round of targets, are well vetted. They have weeks, if not months, to vet these targets. That school was there for years. Some of the children in this school belong to the officers in the naval installation nearby. They wanted to teach them a lesson. If a school was targeted 3 weeks later by an officer, I could imagine that it is plausible that in the rush to find new targets, a mistake was made. Plausible, not probable. But for this to happen on day one, impossible. It's impossible. Just like when they targeted the leader's office, it was very well planned. They targeted the school, it was very well planned. And it was a double tap attack. And they've carried out many double tap attacks. Many. These are monsters that were US pilots are sinister monsters, just like the sinister monsters in the Israeli Air Force. They're the same. These are evil people. The US Armed Forces is a satanic force. It's a deeply satanic force. So in that, and I posted one of the double tap attacks actually, and I think many others have done so as well. The lady who survived the first attack and then they attacked again. I think you may have seen it, where she says her shahadatain. Anyway, that school was a victim of a double tap attack. You can find the address of the school on any app, foreign or Iranian. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the Epstein class. So what else do you expect from someone like the head of the IAEA? And of course, ultimately, if they push in that direction, the entire world will move towards developing nuclear weapons. Everyone will. Because everyone will know that the only way that they can remain safe is to have nuclear weapons, not just Iran, everyone. And that would push the world towards towards destruction, full destruction. Because all countries that will have the capability, and many will have that capability with AI and the new technologies, every year it's going to be easier. So you can imagine the countries across our region and across the global majority will start developing nuclear weapons, and then they will be used. So the madness of this, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, I think is clear for everyone to see. And the reason behind it, the Epstein class.
Professor Marandi, what is happening between Iran and Qatar? Because since this war started, we've seen that Iran has somehow decided for a few days not to attack, not to hit targets in Qatar. What is happening between the two?
Well, I don't know the details, but Qatar is very much guilty of crimes against the Iranian people. CENTCOM was based in Qatar. It was from Qatar where the drones flew to murder General Soleimani. Qatar was behind the US Zionist project of ISIS and Al Qaeda, alongside Erdogan and others, and Abdullah in Jordan and so on. But Qatar was the financial force behind it, at the behest of the United States. And Qatar, of course, it was very much involved in the genocide in Yemen, the genocidal war, both genocidal wars, the first one and the second one by the Americans. In the first one, they were part of it, and I actually defended Yemen on Al Jazeera on a program called Inside Story twice, and then I was banned on Al Jazeera for a couple of years. Just like on Syria, they after a few times where I was invited to discuss Syria, they banned me from Al Jazeera English, and then the same thing happened after the genocidal war in Yemen. But then when the Saudis and the Emiratis targeted Qatar and they turned away from this genocide alongside Turkey, who Erdogan was also supporting the genocidal war against Yemen, they tilted away, and then again they invited me. So this is how Qatar works. They move back and forth, they change policy. After Iran punished it, when the U.S.-Israeli regime coalition bombed Iran's gas assets, Iran struck Qatar very hard. Again, I'm speculating here. I'm speculating. After a couple of days of emotional meltdown in Doha, I think they began to rethink and say that this is not going to end well for them. Iran is not going to be defeated. And maybe, I'm guessing, maybe they're trying to now be more serious about bringing an end to this war. The Saudis and the Emiratis have gone to the other side. They are becoming more entrenched in this policy of killing Iranians. And they will, of course, suffer the consequences immensely if this continues. I don't know. I don't know the behind the scenes, talks and so on. But it does seem that there's a shift in the propaganda coming from Al Jazeera and the many other media outlets of Qatar, and that probably is indicative of some other issues that are going on behind the scenes.
There are two different paths for the Arab states in the Persian Gulf. One of them is to get closer to Iran or make some sort of understanding between them and Iranians in terms of the security of the region, or getting closer to the United States, as Donald Trump said, and kissing Trump's rear by MBS. They're not any other option for them right now, Professor Marandi. In a long run, if you are a wise, player, as we've seen, the outcome was in Ukraine. Everybody can see what has happened to Ukraine, and Ukraine has just been. What's so amazing to me, seeing Zelensky going to these countries trying to help, you have to be so desperate and you ask help from Zelensky, who's somehow on the verge of total collapse and losing the country called Ukraine. But after all, Professor Marandi, you see these countries in a long run understanding what's going on, because after all, we assume that, correct me if I'm mistaken, Iran would hold the Strait of Hormuz. It's not going to be free for these countries to use the Strait of Hormuz anymore. So then they have to come to some sort of mutual understanding between the two parties, Iranians and Arab states. Is that going to happen? Or you see they're getting closer to Zelensky and Donald Trump, and which we know what would be the end for them if they go in that direction?
It's interesting that MBS and MBZ or MBZ, both of them have to kiss the behind of Trump, but also by inviting Zelensky, the Russians are watching their actions, and it's obviously not going to go down well in Moscow. But Nima, Iran has tolerated, let's put aside Western propaganda. The Western propaganda model is falling apart, and people are beginning to see through it. For 47 years, Iran was antagonized. It was called evil. The West was good. Now people are waking up. They see that the only country that opposes genocide in Gaza is Iran, and its axis of resistance allies like Yemen, the organizations that are struggling. And the West and everyone else is either supporting the genocide or they're indifferent to it. So it can't be that the Iranians are the bad guys. The bad guys are the ones opposing genocide, and the good guys are the ones who support it. So the propaganda model is falling apart. But so for 47 years, Iran was never a force of aggression, contrary to what the United States was saying. These family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf, they funded Saddam Hussein's aggression against Iran, an aggression which the West pushed for. They gave him hundreds of billions of dollars. After the war ended, Iran forgave them. Then they started to support ISIS and Al Qaeda in Syria. Then, now we see that they are engaged in war against Iran, and they also helped with the 12-day war too. Their radar installations, US bases, were all used against Iran. From Turkey to the Persian Gulf, the US radar capabilities were all being used against Iran. And of course, this war. So they are the aggressors. And no one believes them for a minute when they pretend that they're neutral. They're just insulting everyone's intelligence. So the status of the Persian Gulf will change after this. Enough is enough. Iran will control the Strait of Hormuz. And through this control, they will get their reparations. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. Then Iran sees the damage that is happening right now to Iran and being cashed somehow by the management of the Strait of Hormuz. Or
yes, I think it's clear that the Iranians will continue to control the Strait of Hormuz. They will probably demand a fee, from my understanding, a fee for every ship that passes. Why? Because this oil and gas wealth that is leaving the Persian Gulf region, or ships that are coming to the Persian Gulf region, to these countries, they're coming and going to countries that waged war against Iran, that killed Iranians, that are complicit in murder and death and destruction. So they're going to have to pay for it. There's no reason for them to complain. And Iran will make sure that they receive reparations in full.
The leadership in Iran, Professor Marandi, it is not just because of the war that is happening right now. We had these Arab states, helping Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war. The same is happening.
Poor Iraq was a hostage to Saddam Hussein. He was, so they were supporting Saddam, not Iraq.
Yeah,
that's how I say it. I understand why you say it, but I always use Saddam, because the people of Iraq, as we see now that the Americans inadvertently unleashed the power of the Iraqi people, now they're fighting for their independence. One of the first successes of this genocidal war against Iran and the axis of resistance is that the people of Iraq are now finally liberating themselves from US occupation and NATO occupation.
How is that going to work for, Bahrain or Kuwait? Do you think, are we going to see some sort of uprising in these countries? I think the case of Bahrain is so much, risky for the government there who are trying to grab the power, but we know what is going on, what is boiling in Bahrain.
Well, we know that Kuwait can be taken by the Iraqi resistance within hours. And that if this war continues, and especially if there's escalation and the oil and gas infrastructure in these countries are destroyed and the electrical power plants are destroyed, these countries will fall apart. And these family dictatorships, they'll be swept away. I'm sure many of them have already left, but or at least many of their family members have left. And they have many palaces and tens of billions of dollars in the West that they've stolen. So they'll be okay. But these regimes, if they collapse and people take over, that's quite possible. If these regimes survive, they will have to confront a new reality. They can no longer treat their people with impunity, and they can no longer allow their territory to be used to kill other people. That era is finished. That era is over. So the arrogance of the Mohammed bin Zayed, and when you look at the Arab world is cheering on as the assets of these dictatorships are being struck, because they all know, people across the Arab world, their hearts are with the Palestinian people. Their hearts are with the resistance. Their hearts are with the axis of resistance. You can see this in the online comments on below, like if you look at the YouTube channel of many of these new media outlets, Arab media outlets that are basically belong to proxies of the West, you see the comments. You see what people are saying online. These are not, these dictatorships are not representative of the Arab people. They are representatives of the Epstein class. They're proxies of the Epstein class that dominates the West. And ironically, some of their names are actually in the document. So it's literally they're a part of the Epstein class, or they're loyal to the Epstein class. So these regimes, if they want to remain these family dictatorships, they're going to have to behave like normal countries. If they're removed, then I think if the free people in these countries take over, Iran will obviously be very friendly to them.
UAE is talking about that they can cooperate with the United States to capture 3 islands in the Persian Gulf, that they claim that it's theirs. But how do you see that happening? Because the United States was not able to defend itself in these countries, in those bases in these countries. They have a lot of weapons, forces there. They were all, they withdrew all of them before the war happened. And right now they're talking about invading these, little islands in the Persian Gulf. Somehow they're gonna, achieve some sort of strategic gain. What is, in your understanding, happening in that direction? Is that going to happen, or is that going to benefit the United States in the war?
The United States will either carry out an operation against islands or against Iran's sea coast, or it may carry out special operations inside Iran through helicopters and planes, and tonight or in the coming days. It's quite plausible, right? They may take territory here or there, but they will be in trouble, and Iran will escalate. And Iran has already said that there is a country that is very much involved in the upcoming attack against Iran. And they haven't named that country, but many people are saying it's the UAE.
Yeah.
And Iran has said they will destroy everything in that country. And when that happens, that country will no longer have a future. So whether an island is occupied for a while, or whether a piece of territory is occupied by the aggressive the Epstein army, it doesn't matter. Iran will defeat the United States, and Iran will punish the family dictatorships. And that means there will be less oil on the market, less gas on the market, and as we go forward, it will get less and less depending on the type of escalation. The United States can't stop Iran's missiles and drones. They're spread out throughout the country. They're not on the coast. And we already saw that the United States lied. They said, after 3-4 days that the Iranian missiles and drones are running out. Look at the last 10, 12 days. It's been much more and much more precise than they were during the last the weeks beforehand. So Iran's capabilities are very much intact. They're getting better and better. And if the Emirates or anyone else continues to go down this road, it will lead to further destruction. They are much more vulnerable to destruction than we are. Iran as a nation of 90 million people, highly educated. It has agriculture, it has industry, it is a civilizational state. And as I said, the religious culture in Iran makes them resilient. And just as till now they defeated their enemies, they will be able to rebuild and rebuild better. After this war, the United States will never be able to treat Iran like this again. Iran will advance much faster than before. So these regimes have made a choice that will lead to their devastation. The only smart move for them to make is the reasonable one. And that is to tell the Americans, okay, this is finished. You're not using our territory anymore. You have to empty those bases. You have to refrain from antagonizing Iran from our airspace or our land, then the relationships can go in a positive direction and the war would come to an end. Because without these countries, the United States cannot wage the war. It will not, it's not just not possible. So they brought this upon themselves. They can save themselves, but instead of saving themselves, they're doubling down because they're foolish proxies. And the Americans don't care about them. When Trump says so and so can kiss me in the wherever, he has no respect for them. He only cares about Zionists. Now, whether he cares about them or they have something on him, that's another thing. He's a psychopath, but there are reasons for him doing what he does, and it's not because he cares for these family dictatorships.
I would assume that Iran has a lot of studies about the ground invasion of Iran when it comes to these islands in the Persian Gulf, close to the Strait of Hormuz, because some people are talking about Larak Island. Larak Island is close to Qeshm. And it reminds me, Professor Marandi, to what has happened in the Kursk region in Russia. Ukrainians were using the best elite forces in the Kursk region, in the invasion of the Kursk region, which finally ended up in the slaughtering of all these Ukrainian forces. It was a huge defeat for Ukraine after all, because they sent best forces, ground forces to that region that were slaughtered by Russians after all. Do you think the same would happen? Because you cannot avoid the invasion, but you can see, are they going to sustain? Are they going to hold, the territory, the island? That's the big question on the part of the people.
Nima, they said that during the 12-day war that they'll kill Iranian military commanders and the so-called regime will collapse. Well, the Islamic Republic won that war. Then in this war, they said it'll be over in a couple of days. Now that the Americans have bought everything they have, alongside their assets that they gave to the Israeli regime as gifts, they thought it's over in a couple of days. Then after a couple of days, when nothing happened and Iran was effectively defending themselves, they said, we've destroyed all of their missiles and drones, and look, the numbers are going down, and it's almost a month now. And Iran is hitting harder and harder. So they miscalculated already. Have no doubt that they'll miscalculate when they attempt to conquer territory. They will be bogged down, and as they're bogged down, the energy prices will soar through the roof. And that will not be sustainable. The Iranians have been planning for this for 25 years. They're smart people. It's an independent country, unlike any other on this planet. And it has already shown that the West has miscalculated and that they have well planned for war. Everything until now is going according to plan. I'm not privy to confidential information, but
yeah. It seems that we've lost Professor Marandi. Let's see if he's going to get back. Let me just... Yeah. It's going to be... I'm trying to reach the Professor Marandi if he's connected. Yeah. It seems that we have some sort of problem with the connection of Professor Marandi and the internet. He's not receiving my messages. I tried to send him a message, and yeah, we lost him. Let's see if he's going to get back. I think what is happening, what I was talking about the Kursk region, you all remember what has happened. Ukrainians attacked the Kursk region, thought that they're going to bring, that's going to, one of the last moves Yeah, Professor Marandi is here. Yeah.
Sorry, Nima. That's how it is here for now. Yeah. Oh, I don't. Where did I get cut off?
Because I was mentioning the Kursk region, what has happened in the Kursk region comparing to what would happen if the invasion happens for example, in Lorak Island, and how Iran is prepared to respond to that.
Well, all I can say is that we have to look at the past. The United States during the 12-day war, they thought that Iran would collapse, and Iran won that war. Then in this war again, they thought it would be over in a day or two after the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei and trying to create fear among Iranians by slaughtering their children. That didn't happen. And then after a few days, they said that they are destroying all of their underground and missile capabilities. That did not happen. So the Iranians know what they're doing. And the Iranians, after a month, it's almost a month now, continue to hammer them. So they've planned this well in advance. It is a deeply independent country with very smart people, very young and sophisticated scientists and highly motivated people who've designed these defense capabilities. So they've miscalculated so far. I'm sure that when they invade Iran, whether it's through some sort of heliborne operation deep inside, or whether it's an invasion of an island or a piece of its coastline, that they will fail. It will be a quagmire. And the Iranians have already planned for this. They've been planning for decades. And so it is only going to make it worse for the United States. And it will only cause the price of energy to go through the roof and get far worse than it is now. And that it will become irreversible, because when the Iranians destroy the oil and gas infrastructure, that means opening the Strait of Hormuz will really be of no use. And so we will have depression that will last for years, and the world will blame Zionism, Trump, and Netanyahu. So I have no doubt that the Americans will declare victory. They'll go to an island and say, we did this and did that. And, the fools who always believe American narratives will continue to be fools. But already we're seeing and that resistance in pushing back against this genocidal force, this Epstein, Operation Epstein Fury has failed so far, and I have no doubt that it's going to fail in the coming weeks as well. Although it will come at a great price to the world. They are sacrificing the international community for these genocidal monsters, but that is the reality we live in.
Yeah. Professor Marandi, the blame game is happening in the United States. Yesterday, it was in the news that J.D. Vance talked with Benjamin Netanyahu, telling him that the information that Mossad was providing, before the war happening, it was inaccurate or it wasn't realistic. And in Israel, they're trying to blame on each other. The Mossad says Benjamin Netanyahu, but in the United States, it seems that the way that J.D. Vance was trying to somehow convincing the people that we had to go to this war, because if we didn't go, you see, the Iranian could use these, suicide bombers, with the West of nuclear bombs, something so strange. I don't know how we made up all these sort of arguments. But after all, how do you see the tone in the United States? We had a cabinet member meeting. Donald Trump was talking there. We had Steve Witkoff mentioning why did the United States decide to go to war? Again, reiterating the same lines, the same points of the document that they tried to send to Iran. And J.D. Vance trying to defend Donald Trump. What is your understanding of these sort of changes that are happening in the United States, considering the fracture that is happening within MAGA as well?
Well, Vance obviously is lying, and it's the lie to nuclear vests and things like that. It's just so ridiculous that I think everyone knows it, recognizes that he's lying. But someone who knows Vance told me, and it's a person who has name recognition, so but I won't name him. Maybe at some point I will if I get his permission. Once told me that actually Vance knows the truth about many things, but he is too ambitious. He told me this before he became vice president. Or maybe it was at the beginning, but I'm not quite sure. It was about a year or so ago, so I'm not quite sure if it was after the election or before it. But he told me he's too ambitious. So although he knows many truths about Iran, about the region, about Zionism, about ethno-supremacism, about genocide in Gaza, he is too ambitious to take the right stance because he knows he will get nowhere in politics. So when he says nuclear vests and so on, it's just an act of desperation to just justify something that has no justification at all and is completely immoral and murderous. So Vance and Tulsi Gabbard are just two cowards. And the person who so far, the only person who has any degree of credibility is of course, Joe Kent, who in his resignation letter basically said what we all knew. Anyone who's been watching your show and your different guests for the last couple of years, they would have already known everything that was in his resignation letter. So I think that Trump is finished. I mean, this war will not end tomorrow. It will probably get worse.
Yeah.
With
You're back, Professor Marandi. And
I didn't know I was lost.
Yeah.
When did I get cut off?
Yeah, you were talking about Vance, and you said the only reasonable character, reasonable person in the Trump administration was Joe Kent, who left the administration, who decided to leave the administration.
Yes, that's basically it. I was just saying that Vance and Tulsi Gabbard are cowards. They know the truth. They're cowards. And Kent showed some integrity. And all I said after that, I think, is that anyone who has been watching your show and your different guests for the last 2 weeks, for the last 2 years, already knew what Kent wrote.
Yeah. Before wrapping up, Professor Marandi, we know they tried to put something on Ghalibaf. They said that he's going to be the leader of Iran. He's trying to negotiate behind the scene with Trump administration. Right now, there is a new article in Newsweek. They're talking about Rouhani is the candidate of Donald Trump. How do you see the leadership right now in Iran? Because I want to know, what is your understanding of these sort of moves? They're trying to manipulate as much as they can, but what do you make of it?
It's their own Orientalist mindset and their ignorance and arrogance. And that's what makes them always miscalculate, as I said earlier. We have a constitution. We have a leader, Ayatollah Seyed Khamenei. We have a Speaker of Parliament, Dr. Ghalibaf, professor at my university. We have a president, a heart surgeon, a lot more educated. Our leaders, it's clear our leaders are much more educated than Western leaders. We have a head of judiciary, and we have a chair of the Supreme National Security Council. It's exactly as it was a month ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago, and a year ago. Whoever wants to negotiate with Iran, it's clear it will be just as it used to be. The same mechanism, and it will be the state that is involved. And they cannot manipulate, and they will have to deal with the 5 conditions that Iran has already set.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Marandi, for being with us today, as always.
Thank you, Nima. Always a pleasure.